Okay, so what I want to focus on this chapter is to finish off our lighting, pretty much. Now, we are going to get started by doing some color grading, which will actually make often quite a big difference. I don't know how much of a difference it's going to make in this scene. It just depends, we kind of just need to see. But we are going to try and get it a little bit closer towards like this, well, not this, but like this feeling. So that's what I want to be doing. What I need for this is, first of all, I need to have a screenshot of my scene, because we are going to use Photoshop for the color grading. This is one of the few times, or actually the only time, that we will go outside of Unreal to do this. And it's just because we are actually able to adjust the colors of our image in Photoshop and then translate that to 3D. So what you want to do is you want to go down here and then go to your high resolution screenshot and simply set this to like 2 or something and just press capture. That's it. So we are now going to capture it, and what this will do is it will show you over here a link, and you can press the link and then you can find your screenshot. So if we go ahead and go up here, 1 second, just trying to find it. Here we go. So now you can see that we have taken a screenshot of our scene. Now the next thing that we're going to do is we are going to load this into Photoshop. And then what you need is you need a LUT, which stands for lookup table, like a color lookup table. Now you can go ahead and you can go into Unreal, and if you simply go to Google and type in Unreal Engine LUT, you will often get it as like the second one. And now in here it will also explain a little bit about what we are doing. So color lookup tables basically allow us, as I said before, as you can see over here, to change the colors of your image inside of Photoshop and translate those into 3D using the post effects. You can see over here there's like a detailed explanation on everything, but I will of course go over this in real time. What you want to do is, or you can find it in your source files, so there's literally a LUT folder in your source files, and you can find the RGB table, or what you can do is you can simply go up and click on this link, and then right click and do a save as. Now what do we want to do? We want to go ahead and in our scene, we want to just drag in, so here we have our image loaded into Photoshop, and we want to drag in this LUT and just move it like a little bit down so that it's not in the way. Now the next thing that I want to do is I want to go ahead and I want to hold Ctrl and click on my layer inside of Photoshop to select my LUT, and then I want to go down here and I want to add a solid color, and doesn't matter what color it is, and then you just want to go ahead and turn this off. The reason you want to do this is because now you can always quickly select your LUT. Now, why would we do this? We do this because we are going to merge these two together. First of all, the thing that I want to do is I want to just go ahead and go to Image, Mode, and set my image to 16 bits. Then I want to right click and I want to merge my layers together. So now that we have merged it together, we can use a filter inside of Photoshop, which is the camera raw filter, which allows me to very quickly tweak a bunch of settings. So I can go ahead and I can go to my filter, camera raw filter over here. And then it's just like the classics. If you ever use Lightroom, you will be familiar with it. It might take a second to load up, but here we go. We get like just like the basics, so we can control temperature, contrast, highlights, all that kind of stuff. One thing to keep in mind, the only thing that you can change that will actually translate to your LUT is overall colors. These are exposure, contrast, highlights. Things like sharpening or like texture or clarity or even custom painting and stuff, those will not work because it's not it's information specific to an image and not information specific to the lighting of your scene. So what are we going to do? Let's have a look. And I will probably like, let's have just like a view of like a bit of all of them, so that I can kind of like see what I want to do. I want to go in here and I want to maybe set my temperature like a little bit down. So I'm going to set my temperature to -5 to add a little bit more blue. Then we have our exposure. I'm going to make my exposure a little bit higher. And my contrast I'm going to actually leave, but I want to set my shadows a little bit less over here, so that we do not have the shadows as strong. Let's see. Let's maybe like push up my highlights also a little bit. See, now I'm going to just tone down my exposure again. It's basically a bit of back and forth trying to get all of these settings. Vibrance. Vibrance can also work to make our scene here. You can make it really abstract and colorful if you want to. But vibrance might work to make our scenes like a little bit more colorful, like this. You can use your curve if you want. So your curve, you can kind of like do some custom blending over here. But I think I will undo that because it does not look like it will do much for me. No, I'm just trying to see if I... So what you can do is based on the curve, the lower you go, the more you are changing the black values. So you can see over here I'm pushing the black values up a bit, and then down here I'm pushing them down again. And that will just again like make my shadows a little bit less and stuff like that. But I think something like this is pretty good. As I said, it does not have to be super intense. We can go ahead and just make this quite minimal. Our color mixer is pretty cool. With our color mixer we can go to different colors. Let's say we have our yellow color, and I can change the hue, saturation and luminance. It's mostly the saturation and hue that will work. So what I can do is I can, for example, make my yellows a little bit more yellow, and maybe even push them a bit more in the direction of orange. I can go for my blues, for example, and make those a little bit more blue, and maybe change the color to be a little bit more in the direction of like a lighter blue. And I can also do this, of course, with the other blues over here. And then we have like some purple and pink. We can go ahead and then push the saturation for those bits. And now you can see that we get quite a colorful looking scene. Now, having all of this stuff, now what I want to do, now I know that color grading does have like controls over changing the colors of your shadows. However, I don't like using those inside of Photoshop. I like using those directly inside of Unreal Engine. So we will just leave that for now. Vignetting and stuff like that, that does not work because it's a LUT. Geometry does not work, and effects also do not work. I think I want to go back to basic, and I want to go ahead and just set my saturation down a little bit. So I'm adding vibrance, but then I'm pushing down my saturation, which will give me this more photo look. 1 second, let's go minus 15. Let's do that. And at that point, I'm pretty much happy with this, as far as I can see. Yeah, it's looking pretty good. So what we can do is we can go ahead, and when you are happy with it, just press OK. And now you can see here. So that was the change. Do I still have my folder open with the previous one? Yeah, I do. So now we can do this just to show you. So before, after. Before, after. You can see that also the volumetric fog and everything comes out a bit more. And we just have like a little bit more information where there are currently a lot of shadows and everything. Now, when you are happy with this, what you can do is you can go ahead and hold Ctrl and click on your mask to basically grab your LUT. Because we now need to isolate the LUT so that we can export it. We can do this by going to Image and Crop. And then we can quickly go File, Save a Copy. And then in your LUT folder, I will go ahead and save a copy as a PNG called LUT_01. It is important that we use a PNG so that we have the full range of colors that we need. So we can press OK. And then you can undo this, and yeah, if you want, you can go ahead and also do like a file and then maybe like a save as, and save this as LUT_01 as like a PSD, so that you still have like a backup. So when you are happy with this, you can go ahead and you can go in here. And now this LUT, of course, I did not spend too much time on. We already have a LUT over here, LUT01. What I will do is I will quickly rename my file to LUT02. So this is the LUT02 is the one that we created for the tutorial. Now, one thing we need to do is very important, because else it will not work, is you want to open it up. And then you want to scroll down and you want to set your... where are you? No, wait, we need to scroll up. Compression, no. 1 second, let me just move it over here because I can't find the setting. Ah, here. So in our texture group, we want to scroll down and we want to set this to a color lookup table. And that will just make sure it does not do any strange compression or anything that will reduce the colors. Now, how to apply this? Super easy. All we need to do is we need to go to our post-process volume. And at this point, a nice trick that I actually have not even showed you before. You can go down here and you can set your screen percentage higher. Right now it's set to 78. This is because it will try to keep my FPS nice and smooth. But if I want to force it, I can set this to, for example, 150. And then you can see that it will almost double my screen resolution, which will give us a much crisper view. Now it does mean that our FPS goes lower because of course we are at 20 FPS because we are rendering this on almost like 5K. So what we can do now is we can scroll down and we can go ahead and find your color grading, and then in the MISC you can find over here a color grading LUT and intensity. Now let's drag on our LUT 02. And there you go. That's it. You can control how much of it you want to have your scene affected, but that will instantly just change our color grading to be very similar to what we have in Photoshop. We can also compare this to LUT 01 to see how close I was. Okay, so LUT 01 I did a little bit more intense, but then I probably toned this down a little bit. So here you can see that LUT 01 I really took my time, and LUT 02 was more to just show you. So you can see I just played around a bit more with the contrast and everything. Now I will probably just be using LUT 01 since, well, I already spent a lot of time on it, which is the one I made off camera. But what we are going to do is we are going to tone this down to maybe 0.6. Yeah, I think 0.6 is nicer. Yeah, see? Yeah, it just has that extra little bit of contrast. So, yeah, 0.6, totally fine. Now, if you want to also change your shadow color, often with cinematic lighting, you can see that what they do is they go into the shadows and they make the shadows slightly bluish. Now, often they do this because the sky basically has blue in it, and that blue will be refracted inside of your shadows, which means that even in real life, shadows are often a little bit blue. Technically, when it's night, this doesn't happen. All of the shadows are based upon the colors of the lights a little bit. But what we can do is we can just still click this, and then here you can see I can make it really blue, but I can just give it a tiny bit of a blue vibe, and I just need to kind of it's quite sensitive, so there we go. So just a tiny bit of extra blue in here. And let's see, we have that. I'm gonna probably go in global, and I want to go to my saturation and maybe tone it down just a tiny bit. That's to 0.95 or 0.9. I think I'm gonna go for 0.9. It's very subtle, but it is there. So what we can do now is we can save our scene, and that's looking pretty good. Awesome. Okay, the next stop that we are going to do is I'm just gonna go ahead and set my screen percentage back to around 80. Here we go. It doesn't make a massive difference, and we have some options later on to, of course, optimize our scene. But for now, this is starting to look really cool, and I want to focus on adding some more fake lights. These fake lights, for example, on these buildings right now, they are really flat, and if we look at it in a camera actor, it's just a flat building. So it would be cool, also on the back buildings, if we just introduce a little bit of fake light by adding a spotlight. So let's go to lights and add a spotlight. Let's press G so that I can actually see what I'm doing. And you kind of just want to have this light pointing up. And let's move it down around here. And I'm going to probably turn off my shadows for this. I'm going to set my cone angle a little bit smaller, and then I'm going to set my radius quite a bit stronger. And now you can see that we have this light, and we can play around with our cone angle to make it more or less strong. And then in the intensity, just go for something really strong like 30. And then in your color, you can, of course, if you want, give it an interesting color. Let's say that we make this one a bit warm. And then it's just a matter of, for example, moving this around. Let's go into our camera actor, and now you can see here we can move it around to get a little bit of a slight difference. And we can technically also do the same over here, although this one does not have a lot of space. So we can go in here, move this, and maybe we want to give this one some warm color, like that, just to fake our lighting again. And maybe set this a little bit lower to 20. Maybe tone down the radius a little bit. Move it a bit forward. There you go. So just like that, we can go ahead and we can add this type of light to a few buildings. I don't want to do it on too much. So I'm just going to go over here. Now these buildings over here already have like a slight emissive. You can see it, right, so that we can see it in the dark. But let's go ahead and go to like this one over here. Let's make this like 50 to make it a bit stronger. Maybe go for some like a blue color. No, not blue, does not feel right. Red. I don't know. Do we want to go for red or maybe just go for like some neutral colors? No, neutral colors also do not work. Tricky one. Yeah, we can also like play around with how we want to push this out. Let's go for maybe some pink. Yeah, let's go for some pink. Maybe that will work better. So this one is purely so that for our camera angle it will look interesting. Okay, we got that one. And I will do probably one last one, which is sitting... I don't know, do I need that one? It might be nice to just have like some kind of a glow against here. I'm just not sure yet. And I want to go for like a more warmer glow. But with our massive windows, I'm not sure if this is really worth it. So we can push this out. Go down here. And have like a little bit of like a glow. And let's press G. Yeah, that does look nice, but let's make it less powerful. Let's make it only like 40 or 30. Because the emissive kind of like reacts with the light, and that's why we need to be a bit careful about it. At this point, let's also save our scene. Yeah, I think that looks quite nice. So we got something pretty good now. So as you can see, our scene is starting to really come together quite quickly now. What we're going to do in the next chapter, because I think our first lighting pass is pretty much done. We will need to do like a little bit of polishing a little bit later. Oh no, one last thing that I want to do, that you can also do if you want. These windows, they have two different glass textures. What you can actually do is you can find your glass, and there's another one that is called glass with lights. And those will actually have some lights turned on. So what you can imagine is if I do this and go over here and maybe do like another one like this, it will seem like some of the lights are turned on. It's like a very small detail, but it can be nice to just have like some lights here and there turned on to make it feel like there is some more life in this building. So yeah, I just want to show you that, because of course you would not be able to know about this feature unless I told you. These ones I'm going to avoid. These ones already have that. So it was mostly that building, and any other buildings that really can use it. No, it's those ones. These ones, the reason I'm avoiding it is because there's so much light, so it's hard to actually pinpoint where the light would be. These ones here on the side would probably also, yeah, not look good. Yeah, I'm probably going to leave it at this point. Let's save our scene and let's go ahead and continue to the next chapter, where we will do another pass where we are going to start placing some more smaller assets to finalize our environment more. And after that, it's going to be mostly just polishing, adding some small tweaks here and there, and then we have something pretty solid looking already. Just going to drag my lights into the lighting folder, save my scene one last time, and let's go ahead and continue on to the next chapter.